It's Deadpool and Wolverine spoilers. Let's get into it, man. This is the latest MCU movie. It is the first, I don't know, I guess multiverse is the messy thing that has been going on in Marvel thus far, and they even address it as much in this movie. Again, obviously, spoilers galore here. So if you're clicking on this and you haven't seen it, well, that's your own fault. But yeah, this has been Loki season 2. I think was the best telling of the multiverse after it really being set up well in No Way Home, and then it's just been kind of all over the place since. It's been, as Deadpool says, you're to Wolverine, you're catching it on a down note or whatever the particular an off period, whatever it was, he says to him, and there's a lot of that stuff. So, by the way, if you're brand new to the channel, you've never been here before, I do a lot of the spoiler reviews, out of the theater reactions, full podcasts, interviews. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Okay, so this movie starts out and it lets you know right away when Deadpool's at Logan's grave from the movie Logan, and even that scene alone where everyone's like, "Oh, what are they going to do to Mangold's Logan?" It was done so perfectly. They screw around and basically tell you this is exactly what we said was going to happen. It's the multiverse. That Logan, that version, he's dead. He did die. Didn't taint it at all. And then just pure chaos ensues as the TVA comes in and Deadpool just kills all of them, which I felt bad for them because they're working for Paradox, but they just have a job to do, and he didn't even cripple them. He just killed them all. And he did it with Wolverine's adamantium skull and everything else. So that particular scene, and it was in typical Deadpool fashion. But I did say, I won't lie, that when I was watching it a few times, and he's doing the dances to, I believe it was NSYNC or whatever, or Backstreet Boys, interchangeable, and they were when he's doing the dance to them, I'm like, okay, this could be one of those movies that if it gets carried away with just the humor and just the jokes, it could lose itself. And sometimes it did. But it also showed what he wanted to do. Deadpool, that is. And by jumping back and going into time, we see they had Cables watch him, what actually, as he takes us back and shows you where he had his interview with the Avengers and sitting there with Happy Hogan on a different multiverse and different Earth or whatever. And funny scene with Jon Favreau where it's like, yeah, I just don't think this is for you yet, but we'll keep an eye on you. And that set him down a path where he's like, they didn't want me, I'm going to give up, and I'm just going to put on my bad wig, work for a car company, and we'll see what happens. But he can't help himself. He's got his horrendous mouth, and he's in the back cutting jokes with that one particular family and curse galores. And I was, again, laughing throughout the entire beginning of it, and I said, okay, what's the story here? Because are we just going to do jokes? And we get him to that party, and he's with the family, with Vanessa, and we find out that him and Vanessa have broken up, and he kind of lost who he was, and so, but they're still hanging out. And there's a funny thing with that one. There's a lot of the references to the extras and Disney, and I will say that I was, even though I saw it and they kind of set you up with the cocaine joke, which they replayed in the beginning here, I was surprised with how many shots they took at Disney and even the shots they took at Warner Brothers. And one of my favorite scenes, because if you've been watching this show long enough, you've seen that I've been calling and hoping that Henry Cavill would play Dr. Doom. Now, this cameo pretty much cements that he will not play Dr. Doom. And when he was showing up to Marvel events, this was probably the beginning of the courting to say, hey, what can we do together? How about this? Would you want to play Wolverine in this one particular scene? How would you feel about that? Because when Deadpool is recruited by Paradox, and that's the guy from Succession, I thought he was okay. I thought the character was fine. I thought that, I don't know if it was him or what he was given. Some of his jokes kind of missed, but the character served the purpose of, okay, Deadpool, I know you haven't. You want to be loved. You want a purpose. You want to be part of something. Well, I'm going to give you a chance to be part of something. We're going to erase your universe, and what you can do is you can be part of something else and be something big. So help us do that. And instead he goes and which was a funny moment when he's like, "Oh, I was the savior that when I left, that's messed everything up." He's like, "No, you're not. That wasn't you. It was Logan. When Logan died, that messed everything up." And he goes to find all the different Wolverines. And when he does that, when he's looking after that, we got to the place where he killed all the TVA people. Then he goes start searching for all these different Wolverines, and I didn't really know what to expect. And they showed it, and from talking with Coy, there's a lot of things they pulled directly from the comics. And this did play like a lot of homages to certain things I remember seeing as a kid, and even when I spoke to Coy about it too, when Wolverine's on the cross is apparently from like a very iconic comic book, and they keep continuously doing that through the ones that he's jumping back and forth to. When you finally get little tiny Wolverine, you get there's one like this. There are a few other ones, but the patch one that he's basically just I was thinking, why isn't he going after all of these in particular? There's so many of them, but then and then then Henry Cavill one, the Henry Cavill thing when they took the shot at Warner Brothers, going those douchebags down the street, and I thought that was funny, and I thought that worked. I was concerned that I'm like, all right, well, this is what this is going to be. Then it's a cameo fest all day long, and I saw some criticisms of that already. And I don't think that they just for this particular thing when they did the cameo with Henry Cavill, they were looking for that cheap pop, and they got it, and it worked. But the other cameos, which we'll talk about, I thought worked for the story in general. From Chris Evans, Wesley Snipes, Jennifer Garner. I really wish that they would have saved Daphne Keane. And I know that I don't buy the excuse of they interviewed Kevin Feige. Well, she really wanted to go to the premiere. So in order to go to the premiere, it would have gotten spoiled that she was in it. So we did it this way. Why? Let people speculate. And she doesn't answer on the red carpet. Why are you going to ruin it for us? Because she wants to go to the premiere. It's great that she wants to go to the premiere. She should go to the premiere. But that's why? Well, we're going to spoil it for everybody because she wants to go to the premiere. That was a terrible, terrible excuse for it. Because I wish we didn't see her at all. And whether she showed up to she was at the screenings. Her and Hugh Jackman are close. They shot a movie together. You could have lied about that. Anyway. But I did think that all of their cameos worked well. Channing Tatum, obviously, which we'll get into, and then Chris Evans. I thought all their cameos were relevant to the story. And when they have the relationship, you first meet Wolverine, by the way, when he's sitting in the bar, and you see that scene that they show in the trailer. There is a good backstory to why this Wolverine, is miserable. This one had this whole thing with the X-Men that we find out later on that he was out drinking one night and he came back and they were all dead, and it's just haunted him, and then he went crazy and he started killing everybody, and so everybody hates him. And when you know that history and you go back and you watch that scene again, if you watch it in the trailer, there was the bartender basically goes, "We don't want you in here, get the hell out of here." And he's like, "Just give me my drink and I'll be on my way." And that's when Deadpool shows up, recruits him, brings him back to the TVA, and they say, "This guy, this is quite possibly the worst Wolverine that you could have found. You think that this guy, you're going to replace the Wolverine in this universe? You think that's what's going to help? This guy sucks. This is the worst one you could have picked." And then Wolverine and Deadpool go on their adventure, or basically get pruned and get put right into that moment of the Fox universe, and we see the big logo in the back, and there is that thing, and I'm not going to lie, when it comes down to sometimes breaking the wall for me, especially happened to me when in She-Hulk, I hated that scene. Deadpool's been doing it in the comics forever, and he's been doing it and I know She-Hulk was too, but Deadpool's been doing it, and I thought they did it clever a bunch of different ways. I was like, am I going to be totally sucked out of the movie? The only time I was kind of sucked out of it a few times was when Deadpool, what was it called? Nice Pool. The Nice Pool element, which I think wasn't as funny as other people thought it might have been. Dog Pool is another one is that what his name? I think it was Dog Pool. But he was he worked for me. I liked that whole thing and how obsessed Deadpool was with him. I'm jumping around from things to things I think about them, but I do wonder why the multiple Deadpools were necessary. I understand why Jennifer Garner, Wesley Snipes, Channing Tatum, Chris Evans, understand why all of those are relevant. I don't understand why we had to have that whole big Deadpool battle scene, minus the fact to say that we had it, when what does that really do for the story, is what I will say. But as we get to the Fox universe side of it, and then this is where we get that first big fight between the two of them. And when that fight happens, Ryan Reynolds calls it. He looks in the screen and goes, "Get ready, nerds," or whatever. It's like, this is what you've been waiting for. And they have a full-on battle between the two of them. Wolverine, Deadpool, scrapping it out, and I feel like, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like 10 or 15 years ago, Machinima did like a video of Deadpool and Wolverine fighting somewhere. I think that was right. I don't know. But I do remember everyone just being so excited to finally see these two regenerating mutants fighting each other and going after each other, and it didn't disappoint. The chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman works the whole entire time, especially during the fight. And Hugh Jackman is getting shot from the sides with Ryan Reynolds. Just Deadpool laying on him, and this is what I loved about Deadpool. He's a fan of Wolverine. He's a fan of him and says as much. But it's like, okay, you want to scrap? Let's do it. And they do it, and they have that fight, and then finally they wind up going out on an adventure in this kind of post-apocalyptic world, and the mutants are coming in. We see Pyro, we see everybody else, and that's when we also see Chris Evans for the first time. And they even, I feel like, I got to see the movie again, but I feel like when he first shows up, there's like a little hint of the Captain America theme song, maybe. I feel like there was, like they were teasing you that it was, and I said to myself as I'm watching them, like, he looks skinnier. He doesn't look like Cap. And then they tease it like, oh, there he is. That's Captain America. Say it, say the words. And he says flame on. He jumps up and is like, oh, that makes a lot of sense that they would be doing that, because this whole entire movie is like a love letter to the Fox universe. And let's start it out there. Here's the villains. Here's Pyro. And it makes all the sense in the world that Pyro would be able to suck the flame out of Johnny Storm. He does. Deadpool sells him out, which is a hilarious moment in that whole thing when Nova shows up. And Nova, I think the performance of the actor playing Nova, I thought they were great. But overall, I think that there was nothing to the character, really. There's nothing really to the character. Thought that by the time we get to the end, it was just kind of generic. And there was more to it when Nova's sticking her hands in the middle of the heads and the noses coming out. There was kind of creepy images, and it was a bit intimidating for sure, but it just kind of petered off a tad bit. The main reason is the two of them, Wolverine and Deadpool, kind of working together, being able to get past their own crap. That's really what the essence of the movie was, right? So there are the moments, and there's that moment where not only do you see Johnny get his skin ripped off, but even before that, when Paul Rudd's head is up there, and Deadpool even says as much, he finally aged. That's the ongoing joke. Sam Levine and I always joke about it all the time. Paul Rudd never ages. Everybody talks about it. But in this, he's a big skeleton. That's where the hideout is, and there's more stuff to go down. They learn more about all these different things that have happened. They're in the void. They see the thing from Loki, and I think that they did that well, where if you never saw Loki, I took a friend of mine to see this movie who had seen Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2, and hasn't seen any Marvel stuff since Infinity War or something, and was not lost by it. I mean, I'm sure a lot of stuff went over his head, but not the stuff where it took him out of the movie, because there was stuff that happened in Loki. He didn't know what the TVA was. He didn't know any of this stuff, but it didn't hurt the experience for him. But they go on the run. They wind up flying out of there, and this is when they find Nice Pool. They get the car. They're driving through. They get into another battle, and this is when Daphne Keane finds them, brings them back. And I know and I'm so curious. Please comment on this, because I will be reading all the comments, and I want to see what people say about this, because this is very similar to that the grievance that I had with announcing Daphne Keane in the trailer because she wanted to go to the premiere. Were you guys paying attention? Did you see it first? Did you see it on Thursday Because if you didn't see it on Thursday, were you spoiled by the reveal that Chris Evans, Wesley Snipes, Jennifer Garner all came out on stage at Comic-Con? Now, I didn't read enough into it. I'll probably know the information after I post this. Did they screen the movie first for people and then bring them out, or did they bring them out first? And I hope it was that they screened the movie first and then brought them out. But I saw stuff in emails of had I not seen Deadpool 3 a couple days before, and I got that email that Chris Evans and Wesley Snipes and Jennifer Garner showed up, I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed off because I was genuinely surprised. I was when Blade showed up, that was the most surprised I was, because Channing Tatum and Jennifer Garner, there was kind of rumblings about it that it was going to happen, and not to the extent of how much they actually had to do. I thought it would be like kind of like a small scene, but it wasn't. They had a good role to play. But Blade was rumored to be in it, but they said it would probably be sticky fingers because Wesley Snipes hated Ryan Reynolds. And I love that Ryan Reynolds says as much in the movie. I think that Blade says something along the lines to him of like, I hate you. And he's like, you always did. And or something along those lines. And then that whole thing where Wolverine is drinking in the background and Channing Tatum comes in. Channing Tatum was hilarious in this. His accent was so bad. It was purposely on bad. So bad. And all these rumors of things, the $200 million Gambit movie that was going to happen, that never happened, and them just continuously just breaking balls about that and showing that he actually could fight, but he's kind of dopey. He's sad because his movie never happened. And then there's that great line where they're talking about all the different people that went in there when they were worried about what happened to Johnny, and he's just kind of painting around it. And then they find out all these different people that went in, and they're like, that person went in? Yeah, he died. And Daredevil died too? And Jennifer Garner's like, yeah, it's all right. It's a nice shot at Ben Affleck, and it was funny. I'm sure he laughed about it too. It was hilarious. And they went through all of that, and then they did play into where we'll get into the at the very end. We can just cover it now. The very end of the movie, the post-credit scene, there was a rumor that the post-credit scene was like this game-changing thing. Well, it wasn't. It was relevant to the film because it's the whole thing about showing the footage of Johnny actually saying what Deadpool said he did, when we all thought, oh, he's lying. He never said any of that stuff. And we find out that he did. So that all played into what was going on in that room. And then they finally go all together, and they talk about the Punisher, and he's like, well, this is the Punisher's weapon. Which one? There was like 5 of them. That continuous thread of, there's so many of these different things. What are you talking about? Like what it is? And they finally go to the battle, and they have this huge fight, and Pyro kind of turns on Nova, and we find that he can almost kill Nova, almost taking her out, and instead they wind up saving her so they can get back to the regular world there and help out. But that's what pisses her off, and she realizes that the TVA duped her. And honestly, from there on, you have that big battle with all the Deadpool. I will say the battle itself was a lot of fun. The stuff that I laughed, even though Nice Pool was like okay for me, the stuff where we find out he can't regenerate, and Deadpool's still holding him up and letting him be shot to shit. It was funny. It was really funny. It just, that out of all the stuff, that was the one I'm like, what does this really do except that what's his face shows up at the end, Rob. And he's Delaney, is that right? And he shows up, and they're like, "Oh, we all have one of him. We love it." And this just was a little convenient. But the core of the story, as we also saw, was stuff that happened with Nova when she was digging around in Logan's brain. Was Hugh Jackman always brings the heart to this stuff. And even though I've seen Wolverine go through all this peril through all the years from like 2000 until now, 24 years he's been playing this character, and I see all of that time, he still brings it, because when that story is like, oh yeah, all right, he is now tortured because the X-Men in his world were all killed and he didn't do anything about it, and it weighs on him. And I've seen other things where things have weighed on him, but it's still carried weight. And then going back to one of the really great things with that Deadpool scene when they're fighting all the different Deadpools, is then you get a chance to see Logan in the outfit. You get to see him in the outfit with the once he finally puts the outfit on, he's afterwards, and they go into the subway thing, and he's got the eyes, and it was creepy looking, and it worked. It worked. And then I was curious of how they were going to play at the end. I thought that they would kill off Logan again because he'd already been done, and maybe this was the final farewell to Hugh Jackman, but they didn't do that. And instead, Deadpool says, "I'm going to sacrifice myself," and he goes into the subway. They both wind up doing it together. They're holding hands. They're doing it. Nova's defeated fairly easily, and then they survive, and he sticks around to the universe. And that's pretty much the summary of the entire movie. And what you do and what you see, the reason why you go to this movie is people are going to say, is it a fun movie? It is. Is it a great explainer of the way that the multiverse works? I mean, not really. It's supposed to be like this kind of game-changing thing. I don't think it's game-changing. I think that you can use a lot of things that happen in here. I think that the ultimate goal was to say, all right, people are going to think that we're going to crap all over what came before us, but we're going to do the exact opposite. Even the good and the bad, where they have the Green Day song at the very end. They're showing all. I mean, they show movies from behind the scenes stuff from movies that just stink to high heaven. But they didn't. It wasn't about that. It was about showing the journey the whole way through, and it was also about showing the journey of Deadpool and Wolverine. They both, as where Deadpool wants to be accepted, he wants to have a purpose. He has his purpose inside of this thing and does exactly what he's supposed to do. Wolverine having his purpose, everybody having their purpose. I'm glad that they didn't kill off Blade. I'm glad they didn't kill off Elektra and Gambit, and I'm glad they didn't kill off Daphne Keane. I'm glad they didn't kill them off, because I thought that they could easily went the route of what happened in Doctor Strange 2. But that didn't happen, and I was happy to see that, because who knows what could happen in the future with Secret Wars coming out, and that scene that people are asking about with Thor when he sees himself with Thor. I think that's Secret Wars. I think that's going to be a scene from that, because when he says, "What's that from?" and then Paradox is like, "No, don't worry about that right now." I kind of knew that wasn't going to pan out in this movie. I don't know why I knew that, but I just felt like it. And then because I had a few people say, "Hey, what?" They didn't even have the payoff. I think it's going to pay off in the Avengers. I think that's what's going to happen in general. But are they going to do a Deadpool 4? I don't know. Should they? I don't know. It's there. I've seen fair criticisms to the movie. I've seen fair criticisms where it's like, well, it is an overall joke fest. I think it is more jokey than the others, and it's bigger than the others, right? It's like that argument that's being said right now with Spider-Man, where Spider-Man 4 is, the rumor is that Feige wants a more grounded Spider-Man, and then Sony wants the big multiverse, big movie. Deadpool 1 was way more grounded. Deadpool 3 was the big multiverse grand movie. It was more the epic kind of team-up, action, buddy action, cameo, comedy. That's what it was. Now, Spider-Man's already had those types of movies, so Deadpool having one of those in those three, I don't think that Deadpool, if it continues on, should continue in the big grand faction. I think you should go back to what they did. One big movie like this out of the three, it works. And I thought it worked. And I think you sign up for Deadpool and Wolverine, hence the name, and you get that. It's what it is. It's really what the movie is, more so than expectations could get what you wanted to see with the multiverse and how it's going to change the Marvel Cinematic Universe overall, could hurt your viewing of it if that's the only reason you're going into it. Because I certainly was thinking that they would do more than they did, but it didn't hurt my viewing because it wasn't the only thing I was thinking. I was like, okay, I want to go, I want to laugh. I laughed. I want to go and I want to see a bloody action rated R movie. I saw a bloody rated R action movie. I want to see good chemistry between Jackman and Reynolds. Saw that. I want to see good cameos. I want to see, I saw what I wanted to see. To me, it was advertised. What it was advertised in the trailers is what I got. They showed you the humor. You got the humor. They showed you the heart. You got the heart. So this movie worked for me. I did see some valid criticisms of it in even the non-spoiler stuff. But I ask you guys, what do you think? What'd you think of this movie? Put your comments in there. I want to hear all the spoiler thoughts, the things that really worked, what didn't work. And as always, subscribe to it. And now I'm going to throw something at you that you didn't expect me to do. A little twist. I've been talking about Marvel the whole time. I'm going to throw some DC at you. I'm going to throw some Batman at you. That's right. Batman. You want to hear about Batman? I'm going to tell you right now. Listen to this. A movie that I always remember really being part of the blockbuster phenomenon was Batman 1989. And it's also what got me into the character. And I started picking up comics back then and started watching and reading a lot of the things that were Batman related, but I never really knew kind of where to start. And people have even said, when I talked to Mike Kalinowski about it, where do you go? What do you, if I want to, like, there's such a long history. Well, that's where FANHOME comes in. FANHOME just launched their Legend of Batman graphic novel series. It's a pretty great collection. I told Mike Kalinowski about it as a Batman buff, and he said that's the collection that you need to get. You know, check this out, because you go through a lot of this, and it goes through a lot of Batman's, like just a lot of the different stories that I wasn't aware of and that I got a little bit more of an education through. There's some really great stuff in there. So the beauty of it is that, first of all, look at that hardcover. And they've all been hand-selected about how good exactly these stories are and why you need to pay attention to them if you are a fan of The Dark Knight. The beauty of these graphic novels, they tell you the stories of what's going on behind the movies, and it doesn't matter whatever ones that you loved from the past, and they're even, if you look at in the future of the movies that are coming out, this is what Batman's all about. Collectors are going to love it, because when you showcase this stuff, the artwork just pops every month. You get a new graphic novel, and it's just going to dive into the world of Batman. All right, so here's what you need to do. You just need to use the link in the description. Use my code that you see on the screen right there, and make sure that you start your FANHOME journey today. If you love Batman and you love graphic novels, then this is exactly what you need to do. Click on it. You will thank me. FANHOME is the home for fans. They have some great stuff. I was just taken aback by all the great things that they have. I mean, look at this thing. I absolutely love it. You'll see it on Showcase in the studio. Just go on their site, browse around. Whether you're a DC fan, a Marvel fan, you're going to find something that you love. So make sure that you use my link. Use the code. Start your FANHOME journey today. I appreciate it.